Mr. Jeff Duncan of South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, it's quite a feat to have the Secretary of State in front of our committee twice in 1 year, and I just wanted to remind the committee that it's been 15 months since the Benghazi terrorist attacks that killed 4 brave Americans, including Tyrone Woods. The administration has brought none of the perpetrators to justice, nor has anyone been dismissed at the Department of State that may have culpability in the deaths of these brave Americans. In negotiating with Iran, the administration chose to ignore the plight of Pastor Abedini during the negotiations and decided instead to release an Iranian nuclear scientist to please the Iranians. That just baffles me. Mr. Secretary, in negotiating with Iran, you seem to give them the benefit of the doubt that they will comply with the agreement, but I agree with the Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister, John Baird, who said, "We think past actions best predict future actions, and Iran has defied the United Nations Security Council and the IAEA. Simply put, Iran has not earned the right to have the benefit of the doubt." Iran's a bad actor. We all know that. Numerous hearings in this committee have pointed out Iranian activity in the Western Hemisphere. Even the Defense Minister of Israel acknowledges this in a December 9th article in the Times of Israel. He states that Iran has built an infrastructure of terror in Central and South America in order to, among other goals, have a base from which to attack the U.S. These are the guys we're negotiating with. Iran has been clearly implicated in the Buenos Aires AMIA bombings in the 1990s, and in Latin America, the administration has chosen to abandon 190 years of U.S. foreign policy by declaring the era of the Monroe Doctrine is over. Now, what kind of message does that send? It sends the wrong message to countries like Iran and also to China, Russia, North Korea about our reliability in the region. So having made all those statements, I have to ask, why trust Iran? There has been no accountability for past actions and past links to terrorism. So I've got a series of yes or no questions for you. Iran is still listed by the U.S. Department of State as a state sponsor of terrorism, correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Is Iran still supporting Hezbollah and Hamas?
Yes.
Hezbollah is still active in South America. We've established that in this committee, and the State Department has seemed to agree with that in complying with the Iranian Threat in the Western Hemisphere Act of the last Congress. So what impact do you estimate sanctions relief will have on Iranian financial and material assistance to Hezbollah and other regional proxies? If we lift these sanctions and they have $7 billion of U.S. dollars, what impact do you think that will have on their state sponsor of terrorism?
I think very little, if any, because they are a $1 trillion economy, and this is a tiny percentage of that. So they don't, they're not banking on this money in order to be able to engage in the nefarious activities they take place in, which we disagree with, all of them. I cited a moment ago our concern about the many other issues, from missiles to support for terror to support for Hezbollah. I mentioned Hezbollah earlier. So obviously all of these things concern us a lot, Congressman, but nowhere, not once today, nothing that I said intimated in any way whatsoever a benefit of any doubt. I sat here and said we're skeptical. I sat here and said they got to prove it. I sat here and said we're going to test them. I said we're not even going to mention the word trust. This is based on testing and verification. So I don't know where you get this idea about giving them any benefit of the doubt. There's no benefit of any doubt here. This is a very skeptical and tested and focused process of verifying a program that we have to account to the world for.
Let me ask you another question then. Does North Korea have nuclear weapons?
North Korea does not have a program yet that is capable, but they have had some explosions of devices.
Okay. In February and April of 2007, North Korea agreed to abandoning all nuclear weapons and existing nuclear programs and returning at an early date to a treaty on non-proliferation nuclear weapons and the IAEA safeguard. Supposedly, this significant achievement commits 6 parties at that time to an agreement to a denuclearized Korean peninsula. That was in February and April of 2007. Guess what? September of 2008, they were back. And we gave them 950,000 tons of fuel if they would stop their nuclear weapons program. I go back to one of the gentlemen to my left said freeze and then it would unfreeze. That's exactly what happened in North Korea. They froze it, and then they got what they wanted out of the deal, and then they restarted it. I'm afraid we're going to see this similar thing happen. Different actors, the same script. Now I yield back.
We're going to go to Lois Frankel of Florida.